Bam!
Bim Bam and Sidelines. Big
Look
Bam.
at that.
That's right.
I got my cup.
That's right. Dueling cups. Hey, Rob Browne and Brenden Martin here with you on this Wednesday morning, the day before Halloween. You better get your candy ready. Remember some of the folks I used to go to, you find somebody that's house smelled like mothballs, they give you old stale potato chips. You wouldn't come back to that house.
Green candy that's been melted and it's
candy corn. Well, get ready for it, man. We're going to have our Halloween show tomorrow. But today, we got Jordan Davis Hill, 24/7 Sports on Georgia, talking about world's largest outdoor cocktail party coming up Saturday in Jacksonville. That's a big one. After that, right after Jordan, we'll have David Whitley of the Gainesville Sun talking about the Gators' perspective on this game. And Dudley Dawson, hogville.net. They got a big one up in Fayetteville Saturday with Ole Miss. This is do or die. The Rebels are on for the playoff. Every game is the biggest game. The biggest ever. And then Vince Ferrara, the sports animal in Knoxville, checks in as well. We'll be talking about Tennessee and Kentucky, the checkerboard end zones up there. Hey, smash that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner and allow the notifications on your Android and iPhone. Once you subscribe, that helps us and helps you because you'll automatically get a ding every morning when we go live on this show. We got a bunch of shows on here. Buddy Martin Show, Best Fridays in Football, SECU. Jimmy McDavid.
Sometimes I just have a few drinks. Sometimes I have a few drinks and I just turn on the studio and I just come in here and I just.
Yeah, we got the disco ball going.
Yeah, we just got the disco ball.
Michael Brennan, Jimmy McDavid were arguing this morning. It's pretty funny about Texas. You know how big it is and. They're paying their players. Now everybody pays their players now. Okay, so hey, drill, baby, drill. They get a lot of money out there. Jordan, even though they got all that money at Texas, they couldn't defend themselves against the hunker down, you hairy dogs when they went out there a few weeks ago. Georgia last weekend was off, and now they're going to Jacksonville. 16-point favorites. Take it from here.
Yeah, I mean, I think Georgia sees this as an opportunity to start what's essentially the back half of their season on a high note. You know, they played really well at Texas, specifically the defense. Offense left some things that need to be cleaned up. And you go in and play a Florida team that I think Brenden would probably agree with this is probably feeling pretty good right now. I mean, I think they'd feel better had they won that game in Knoxville, but, they're I think 4-3 right now. Got DJ Lagway playing pretty good. I was looking at some of the numbers from that Kentucky game. I mean, they only completed 7 passes, but all 7 were for at least 20 yards. But I think Georgia feels good coming off of that Texas win, getting a bye week, an opportunity to get guys healthy. I think that it's not going to be a secret to any of these players, especially the new ones, how much this rivalry means. Kirby Smart is going to be preaching it. If you guys remember, the audio was leaked from a few years ago, his pregame, where he was really fired up talking about Florida. They know that they want to come in here and start the back half of this schedule on a high note. It won't be easy. I think this Florida team's playing pretty good, but I think they understand the task at hand.
All time, Georgia leads 56-44-2. This is the 103rd game in this series. That is a rich tradition. You like Jacksonville, or you want to go home and home?
I like the tradition. I was looking at this earlier this week. I think this is going to be the 92nd game played in Jacksonville in this series. I got to be honest, I didn't realize there had been quite that many. But, there's talk it will be moved out for a couple of years because of construction to the Jacksonville Stadium. The talk right now is Atlanta and Tampa keeping it neutral. And I had this kind of epiphany the other day, Rob, that they're going to do neutral sites because if they take them on campus, the fans will revolt if they take them back off campus. But, I think it's that. And I think, too, just the financials. We're still talking about, the House versus NCAA, this new era of college sports. I'm not really going to fault the universities for saying, hey, let's take this money on these neutral sites and then go back to Jacksonville where we're going to continue to get money. I love the idea of bringing them on campus. I've never covered a game in the swamp. My Auburn buddies, when we talk about the loudest stadiums we've ever heard, they say Florida from I think it was 2019 when Auburn played there. But I'd like to see them back on campus. I don't think we're going to get to. But I do like tradition. And with a sport that's changed so much, I'm not upset if Georgia continues to play Florida in Jacksonville for years to come.
Yeah, I know in 94 and 95 they played in Athens. They played in games in those 2 years. But
it's something about it just takes away from the fact that it's college football, right, Jordan?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you on that. Like, I want to see it. I would love to see them home and home. I just think it would bring back some of that tradition, which I think is lost. I don't like going to Jacksonville. I don't like going to the game. I mean, the game. I don't like watching the game there. I don't like watching college football there, I should say. Stadium's set up different. It's very goofy. It's open. It just doesn't feel like the same atmosphere to me.
And I think the comparison maybe, Rob, you could make is when Auburn, Alabama used to play in Birmingham. Maybe would you say that's fair?
Well, and it was funny. It was supposed to be neutral, but Alabama played 3 or 4 games. When Auburn expanded their stadium in 1980, they quit playing 2 or 3 games a year in Birmingham. And you saw what that did for Auburn. And Alabama, the same thing. As Coach Dye told a group of Auburn and Alabama people, Doug Dean, our friend, was with a few years ago, about the games being in Birmingham. He goes, well, you're lucky we moved that game down there to Auburn. Y'all still be playing over there in Inslee. And I think about that. Yeah, I still drive by Legion Field, and my stomach is up in my throat. I mean, but it's college football. And Jordan and Brenden, I'm against anything that makes college football more like pro football. So there's just nothing. And Jacksonville, I mean, the Georgia fans you talk to, I think it depends on their age, Brenden and Jordan. I think that's what it is.
There's more Gator fans in Jacksonville than almost every city other than Tampa or maybe Orlando. I mean, I know our demo, Jacksonville, is massive.
Well, I would say, too, just from the Georgia standpoint, for me, I think Rob hit on a big thing is the age, because I think a lot of people, this is like a yearly tradition. We go down and stay at St. Simon's or Tybee or, make it like a trip. And so, like, that part of it, again, I would totally be down for it to be a home and home, but I do kind of like in a sport where so much has changed. It's like, hey, we know this is going to happen every year. And I will say,
I just like to go to Athens once in a while. I just
and that's fun. Yeah, and I would say even if they just did a rotation, I'd be okay with that. Like doing it, every 4 years.
That's a good idea.
Well, Jordan, this Georgia team. We were talking last night on the Buddy Martin show. I was on there. I said the best chance for Florida is that they rattle Carson Beck, but Texas rattled him in the first quarter, and he bounced back. He's got that Tom Petty look about him. He's pretty cool. But their defensive line for Georgia, the front seven, how good is this one compared to 21, 22, and 23?
Well, I think we really got our first glimpse of even kind of making that comparison against Texas, because they have been so beat up this year, and they're still waiting. I think Jordan Hall's finally going to get back, and he is a guy from Jacksonville, and so I think he's going to be excited to play in this game. And I don't think it's quite as good as those lines before it, because they still don't have that game wrecker in the middle. I wrote about Nazir Stackhouse actually this morning. He's sort of the guy doing the dirty work at nose tackle. He doesn't have the numbers of a Jordan Davis or a Jalen Carter, but he's reliable. He's getting ready to make, I think, his 37th consecutive start. Just think about how much beating and banging he has gotten up there in the middle of the defensive line. But no, it's a good one. I thought that they showed how capable they are rushing the passer. And that's been sort of a knock even on some of Georgia's better defensive lines the last few years. And they got after it, 7 sacks against Texas. At one point, Arch Manning goes in because it's just not going well for Quinn Ewers. I do think this is a capable line. And again, I don't think it's any secret when we talk about this year's game. I think you have to affect DJ Lagway early, even if you're not sacking him. Get to him, making him throw off platform, making him move. I think if you do that, especially early in the game, that bodes well for Georgia.
When you look at Florida, what keeps you up at night if you were the Georgia defensive coordinator?
I think it's those explosive plays that I was talking about earlier, and this has been a secondary that at times has been susceptible. I go back to that Mississippi State game where Michael Van Buren had a really good second half against Georgia. I think he threw for about 200 yards in the second half alone. So that'd be the big thing to me. I mean, I really like Florida's receivers. I mean, Badger. I'm still big on Eugene Wilson, who's been dealing with injury some this year. And he had one catch against Kentucky, and it went for 40 yards. So that's a pretty good sign. That would be the biggest thing to me, is that. And then again, DJ's ability to move, to keep plays alive. Kirby Smart talked about him on Monday and said that something that really impresses him about DJ is how he's willing to kind of navigate the pocket and go up in the pocket and not panic. And he said, you don't see that a lot in true freshmen. You think about a young guy making his first few starts in the at the college level, and if he doesn't see like his first read, a lot of the time they're taking off, and he's done a good job of staying in and taking some heat and maybe taking some hits. But it bodes well for him in the long term, and it's I think that Florida's got a really good quarterback, and he's got high potential as he gets more experience.
Well, aren't we seeing this play out with AR a little bit in the pros right now, where you've got just this guy, this athlete, this pure athlete, right? We all know he's unbelievably gifted as a human and an athlete. But between the ears, right? That's always his deal. Like, I mean, we don't even need to talk about him needing to take a break.
Yeah.
A break, dude, you're bougie. Anyway, but the point is that, Lagway seems to have that. What did Napier say at the beginning at the Orange and Blue game this year? He said, once you get him into competition, he's like a Tebow. Like, he just starts. That's when he starts to register, and that's where the game slows down for him. And I think that separation that we see in like that next level athlete, like the a la Jordans, a la these guys that find the zone, right? They find that space, and they say that's the intangible about Lagway. That he's got the coachable ability where he wants it and he wants you to, and he's humble there. But that's where they say he's the they were talking about him coming in. He's the next Tim Tebow-esque because he's such a competitor.
Jordan,
talk about Jordan, getting rid of the football early. That was the Mertz knock, was like he just held on too long, right? And you knew he was going to do it. What's Georgia going to do to adjust for Lagway per se? Do you put a spy on him? Have you heard kind of like what's the game plan there?
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they spied him some. Jalen Walker did that a decent bit in that Texas game against yours. I mean, what I would expect is for them to come after him, because I think that that's really what worked in that game against Texas, was that they brought guys. Jalen Walker, I think, is going to be a first-round pick. He has been an outstanding edge rusher for Georgia, and he had a big game in that win against Texas. So, it'll be interesting, because I think back to that Alabama game, and they were very aggressive early against Jalen Milroe, and Jalen burnt them for it. Now, Jalen Milroe's got a lot more success and a lot more experience, I should say, at this level compared to DJ Lagway, who's still getting his feet under him as a true freshman. But my thought is they're going to try to get after DJ. They're going to try to rattle him. They're going to try to get that red half of that Jacksonville Stadium fired up, and the Florida people getting upset with how it starts, because I think that's the biggest thing. That would be my approach against a young quarterback, is let's rattle him early and test him. And you know what? DJ may be up for the test, but I think that's a smart strategy, is go after him and see how he responds.
I agree. And David Whitley's going to be on with us in a minute. If you can hang on a second, I'd love to get y'all two to ask maybe a question that you might have for each other's programs. He's with the Gainesville Sun. And David, this is Jordan Davis Hill, one of our favorite. And Jordan, I cannot thank you enough. Every time you come on the show, you put the word out on social media. Not everybody does that. And you let us know what we can do to help you grow your brand always. We appreciate it more than you can imagine. But David, any questions for Jordan, who covers Georgia like kudzu and cotton cover the South?
Morning, Jordan. I guess I'm like a lot of people who have just watched Carson Beck, and it's sort of scratching their heads. I know it's probably a hot topic, and I may have addressed it, but I'm just, what is the explanation of his? He hadn't played poorly. In fact, he's really great in spurts, but then, as everybody knows, he's had some turnover issues. Is he just? Is it the line? Is it just him? Is it or just? I'm just sitting here from afar observing. I'm just wondering, where was the Carson Beck, or where is the Carson Beck that everybody thought he would be going into the season?
You're muted, Jordan.
You're muted, Jordan.
Yeah, unmute yourself, buddy. Potentially. There you go.
Okay.
Oh, off on. On off.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah. Jordan, you back?
He's up. We lost him. Maybe pop back in, Jordan. Your internet went bad.
Yeah.
David, go ahead, Mr. Whitley. What do you think Jordan was going to say? How about that, Mr. Prognosticator? What was his
What do I
answer?
think?
Yeah, what would his answer have been?
I think he was oversold at the start of the year, and that he's a good quarterback, just not the great quarterback that everybody thought. I think maybe there was. It's sort of funny, after 2 years with Stetson Bennett, it's sort of like everybody loves Stetson, but they were thinking, all he did was win. Man, if we could get, the next Matthew Stafford in there, we'd really be something.
Yeah.
And so I think
what makes Georgia good? What makes them really good? Is it just the whole team thing, or is there a standout? So what makes them so Georgia?
Oh, just everything. The program.
Yeah. Jordan,
I mean, this question here. Their roster, David. I mean, Jordan. Yeah, here's Jordan back in. And Jordan, I know he had asked you the question about Carson Beck, and we lost you there, but let's go back.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Great. Well, yeah, with Carson, I really think it's a situation where I don't think he's 100% healthy. And he's kind of talked about that a little bit. And that's why I've really circled this game as like my test of like, all right, is this what Carson is this year, or did that bye week really help him? Because, there's been, I can think specifically of a throw in that Alabama game and a throw in the Texas game where he just didn't get enough on it. So it's sort of like, okay, is he hurt and just not able to make that throw? Or is it just is he overthinking what he's capable of doing? And the whole reason that I kind of say that I think he's not 100%, he took a fall late in that Kentucky game in week 3 on his shoulder. And he kind of talked about it after the game and said, yeah, but, they had a bye week after that before they played Alabama. And he's like, I'll be okay. I kind of wonder if he's playing hurt. And, again, they've had a bye week. I want to see if he's able to respond to it, play better, and, get a sense again if he was playing through injury or if it was a situation where this is just what he is now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the injury might explain a lot of that because he can make the throws. He just hadn't made them consistently, it seems like. And I guess the injury is also one of those things that you may not find out till after the season because they're not going to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in retrospect, if they win and say, man, and we did it with him, with a bad wing the whole time, but John Wayne'd up. And credit to him.
Yeah, for sure. And this, I'll just say, Rob, this game means a lot to Carson. He's from Jacksonville. He played well in it last year. So it'll be interesting to see how he plays and then to hear from him afterwards. And I plan on asking him, if he feels like that bye week has helped him.
Yeah. Jordan, I know you got a bunch of stuff to do today, and thank you so much always for coming on here. Let people know how they can follow you because you put out incredible content every day, 24/7.
That's right. I appreciate that. Dogs 24/7 on Twitter at Jordan Davis Hill, on Twitter at Dogs 24/7, and looking forward to getting down there on Saturday. David, I'm sure I'll probably see you there, and excited to see how this one plays out.
Yeah, okay, will do, man. It's going to be a fun one, man. Thanks, Jordan.
All right, see you guys.
I tell you, he is Jordan's one of my favorite guys on here. He puts out stuff all over X and everywhere when he's coming on.
Skynet, some of that Elon Musk internet.
Yeah, we got to get Starlink. That's what we got to get. David Whitley, we had fun last night on the Buddy Martin show. I've got right now, I'm feeling like Georgia 32-21, something like that. But you've followed this, as has Brenden, this rivalry. It's the 103rd edition of the Classic in Jacksonville. How many upsets, let's talk about it again, have you seen in your career as a lifelong, you were born in the swamp?
Yeah. Actually, I was born in Birmingham, but I was raised in Jacksonville, so I was pretty much raised when back when you could call it the world's largest outdoor cocktail party and not be shamed for saying it.
Oh, I still do because it is.
Yeah, me too. And that's another story, that whole name thing. But
what is the story? Why
don't
you tell me the story?
Yeah,
tell me the story because I know the story. Tell me the story of the name.
Oh, the name? 1958 game. Florida Times Union sports editor Bill Castells was wandering around and he sees, that a drunk goes up to a cop and offers him a drink. And it just sort of planted a seed in his head, and he got up there and he got to thinking, and he just wrote, "This is the world's largest outdoor cocktail party." And out of it just stuck, and it became the name. You got your Red River Rivalry and all that kind of stuff, but this became the name that everybody uses for it. And it became politically incorrect to use there in the mid 80s, and the city of Jacksonville officially dropped the name. And then in 06, the schools asked CBS to stop using it in its thing. So, yeah, but things have changed because 06, the schools, there was no booze, no beer, nothing sold at games. Now the schools they're in the liquor business.
Now it's all different.
Yeah, and in fact, Georgia was the last team. Georgia and Norton were the last two schools that didn't allow public sales in the general of beer until this year. So I mean, they've lost the moral high ground here. Yeah. So when they say you shouldn't do that, it's like, hey, don't. They're telling you. With one hand, they're scolding you with their finger. The other, they're drinking a Jack and Coke.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time in the mountains in Arkansas trout fishing. For years, until about 10 years ago, those were dry counties, okay? Uh-huh. You'd have to buy your 30-pack in Truman, Arkansas. They sell 30-packs over here, not just 24s. So we figured out why those were dry counties. The sale of alcohol, liquor, and beer and wine would cut into moonshine sales. That's what that's all. Think about it. That's what it's all. I'm around those people. They're great people, but that's what it's about. Yeah. But you're right, the hypocrisy. So because it's politically incorrect to say it, I will say it. The world's largest outdoor cocktail party. How did the Iron Bowl get its nickname? Shook Jordan. Auburn was going up there in the 60s. They weren't going to a bowl that year. And they said, well, Coach Jordan, what are you going to do up in Birmingham? He goes, well, we're going up there to Birmingham playing that Iron Bowl because of the steel industry there. That name stuck. And, the question is, can you call volleyball games or a swim meet the Iron Bowl of swimming? They do, and they will. Hey, PC violates and infringes on the First Amendment. My God, the schools are making gazillions off alcohol sales. Hypocrisy is what it is.
Yeah, and it is not a lot of games have great nicknames. I mean, Iron Bowl is one. Yeah. Red River Rivalry is pretty good. Egg Bowl. But I mean, a lot of them they try to give names to, and they're just lame. But here you had maybe the most recognizable and entertaining name of any rivalry, and they don't want to use it.
No question.
Yeah.
No, Don Rickles would love that name.
Oh yeah, and so would Foster Brooks.
Yes. By the way, if you ever are looking for something to watch to make you laugh so hard you will cry, watch the Foster Brooks roasting Don Rickles up there. That's the funniest 7.5 minutes you will ever see on TV. That's back when late night TV was funny, David.
Oh yeah.
Birmingham, huh?
Yeah. But I tell you, you're right. There's nothing funnier than those old Dean Martin roast. When Foster Brooks gets up there and kills her. And when you think of the star power that was sitting there on those panels, I mean, you had Bob Hope, Frank Sinatra. I mean, it'd be like you had Tom Cruise and Matt Damon sitting there. And they were just yucking it, and it was a weekly thing. And here comes I mean, people they need to see these days. Half the world will go, oh, did he just really say that? And Foster Brooks playing that whole that's Otis the drunk from Mayberry routine. I mean, it's classic. But I guess we were talking about the game, but this is more fun to talk about.
Dean didn't have any booze in his drink. I mean, he was drinking water most of the time.
Yeah,
as I thought. Yeah, he didn't really drink. Yeah,
and Foster Brooks did not drink.
Yeah, he played it drink. Yeah,
Foster Brooks did not drink. I know
that's the fun part about it.
Yeah, well, we got to have more fun. I mean, that's what this show is all about. Getting back on this Florida Georgia game, you are there. You get to see some practice, some stretching, but you're a beat writer. You got the old Sterno notepad like this in your back pocket. You're taking a lot of notes. I love that. Let's tell people that are watching all over, and thanks everybody that's watching, what Florida can do, their path to victory against Georgia Saturday in Jacksonville, 3:30 Eastern on the Color TV.
Yeah. Well, we hope it's color. If not, you're probably still drinking moonshine. But anyway,
that's right.
If it gets real bad, I hope it's black and white.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned practice because they're closed and everybody has talked about how the open week has been just great elixir for Florida this year. Yeah. After the first open week, they started and then they had the same thing this past week, and we didn't get anything. So I tried to circle around and sneak through it, and I peeked through a gap one day just to look to see if I could get away with it. And I did for like 20 minutes, and they were scrimmaging more. They are more competitive. They were running situational drills, high pressure, and whether that's what they said really helped them in the first open week, especially defensively. So they stuck to the same routine, and the Florida fans' dream would be they make that same kind of leap from that they do in that first open week, and they do it again because they are cautiously optimistic. Obviously, down here, caution comes from the fact that Georgia is Georgia. Optimistic comes from the fact that they're playing better. Defense is playing better. Lagway, the whole. He. I think half of them fully expect him to walk across the St. Johns River to get to the game.
It's trauma. Yeah. It's traumatic abuse. It's what it is. It's just trauma. Just like it's the abused person going back to the abuser. It's just trauma. We're just all hopeful, but I mean, what's do you think any of those people are going to be like surprised if it's blowout by halftime? They're going to be like, okay.
Well, you can give people hope. I mean, when you see a quarterback like that, David.
Right. Oh, that's true. And if it is a blowout,
I hope he doesn't leave, and I hope he doesn't get hurt. That's what I hope.
Yeah. Well, I think if it is a blowout at halftime, I think that they would be somewhat surprised, but they would also be disappointed as opposed because they expect more. 3 weeks ago they wouldn't have expected. They said, "All right, that's what we knew it might be." So they wouldn't be surprised actually, but they would be disappointed because now that after the last couple of weeks and beating Kentucky pretty handily, they think, all right, rays of hope. There's explosive plays out there. As I was talking to got Steve Spurrier, and Spurrier he tells you what he thinks. He says, "Yeah, great. We're not throwing those sideways passes anymore." He says, "We're going deep."
Yeah.
And he was the mad bomber, and Lagway just changes the equation as far as how the defenses have to play them. And that's going to be real interesting to see what Kirby, can cook up to take him out of the game. And I mean, we all respect Kirby as the coach, and I think he's going to come up with something to make life difficult for DJ.
Look what he did to Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, that was obvious. I mean, I don't think Quinn Ewers. I think everybody on this show would agree. Quinn Ewers didn't like getting hit like that, and then they put in Arch, and it didn't help any. I mean, for whatever reason, people always think the backup quarterback's the best quarterback on the roster. I mean, we've all seen these stud quarterbacks that later became superstars. When they were freshmen and sophomores, they came in a backup role to try to change the flow of the game. I mean, there's a huge difference being 18 and being 23. Huge difference.
Yeah. I will say Gainesville is the one spot right now where they don't think the backup quarterback is better. They know it's pretty much DJ or bust.
Speaking of backup quarterback, was it Clay Millen? Is that the backup quarterback?
No. It's Aiden.
I don't even know who it is. Aiden something. I don't know.
Kid from originally Orlando and went to Yale.
Yes.
And they actually, they think they may have found something there, but he's not DJ Lagway. And nobody's.
You find him once in a coaching career.
And it's sort of. I heard you talking about Anthony Richardson before I got on there, and it's the same situation with it, where they knew 3 years ago it was AR or nothing, and so they told him they tried to put him in bubble wrap as much as they could. And I mean, you saw it with Lagway against Kentucky. He's been told, do not take a hit, slide, and they got to keep him upright. And I'm sure that's in Georgia's mind too.
What does he weigh? 240?
Oh, you hear 240 to 250. I mean, but you walk by him and he looks like pre 1980 he would have been a defensive tackle. I mean, he is a big dude. And but he, they weren't letting him. You didn't really see his running ability early on this year. When he was starting against Sanford in those games. But now you're seeing more of it, where he, they, and that as a whole new component. If you're a defensive coach, you got to, as if they're talking about keeping a spy on him, and it takes away from your secondary. When you got to worry about that guy running. So it's if just from an X and O standpoint, it's going to be real interesting to see how Napier and Smart try to work this thing out.
It will be. And another question before we let you go, because we got Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, and Vince Ferrara coming on. But
hey, by the way, it is Aiden Warner, by the way.
Okay.
Aiden Warner.
Okay.
Yeah, and he is a transfer to Florida as a Yaley, as a walk-on in the spring, 3-star recruit from Winter Park High, earned redshirt season in 2023 at Yale. And Clay Millen is the CSU transfer, who's the backup to Aiden Warner. There you go.
All right. Well, David, just close out by just telling people how they can follow you and keep up with all your great work, because you're a beat writer. I mean, that's like talking
real deal.
Yeah, you're the real deal. You're like talking to someone who has actual combat experience. If you're talking about
there's no .com.
There's a different kind of person, But I love what your descriptive breakdown of this game. You do an awesome job, and as a writer, you're gifted.
Well, thank you. And I am a combat veteran. I really suffer PTSD though quite often. So from too many games, but many late night games. But I hopefully I won't wake up screaming in the middle of the night, going, run, Lindsay, run! That's the kind of night here. But
run, Lindsay, run! You gave up. I did too.
That's right, baby. You got to. It's the best weekend of the year, and hopefully they'll keep. They got to keep it in Jacksonville. But that's another whole story on this thing. But you can find me at Gainesville.com, which is any Gannett papers run a lot of my stuff. They're so desperate because we're in the Gannett chain, or David E. Whitley on Twitter, and so all that stuff.
Whitley on X. David, thank you. Look forward to being on Buddy Martin Show with you next week, talking about all this. And any breaking news, let us know. Appreciate it.
I will. And if you get Forrest Brooks on, let me know. I'll definitely tune in.
Mrs. Pickles. Oh, that's the funniest one. Watch it today.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Hey, let me say something real quick about one of our sponsors before we go to Dudley. Good God, that's gorgeous. Holy cow. We are not worthy, but Landers Ford.
I guess you're looking good too.
Yeah. LandersFordMemphis.com. Proud to have them as a new sponsor. #1 Ford dealership in the Mid-South. Brad Bellamy, the general manager, will send you to him. He's the quarterback, and he will put you with the right salesman to help you buying a new car, truck, or SUV. They also have an inventory of pre-owned vehicles out there. Ginormous service department located at Houston Levy and Poplar in Collierville. LandersFordMemphis.com. Open Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Service department opens at 7 a.m. open until 6 p.m. Giant inventory. Check and click on the QR code. And when you call out there, tell them you heard about them on SEC Sidelines. We are really proud. They are involved, guys. They've got their name on 6 football stadiums just in the Mid-South. They sponsor the Touchdown Club. If there's a good cause out there that can make a positive difference in people's lives, LandersFordMemphis.com is involved. Again, proud to have them as a sponsor. Dudley, the leaves are changing, and in my business, that can mean only one thing. It's time for your annual compliance work to be completed. But it's beautiful. Beautiful. My God, is that the Boston Mountains in the background up
yes,
there?
Yes, it is. It's just outside the back door here. Yeah.
I mean,
it is so gorgeous. Hills you guys got there. I mean, you understand. I grew up in Colorado.
If I decide to have a moment by myself, I can just walk out back here.
That's right.
I've been desperately trying to get my Dudley Dawson costume ready for tomorrow because I want to be you for Halloween.
There you go.
I love it, man. Dudley, you are a cool cat. We were talking about Don Rickles and the Dean Martin roast that we grew up seeing back when people got on TV and just let her rip. You've got that cool
into oblivion.
Yes, it's right. And Foster Brooks, apparently allegedly he never drank, but he did a great drunk. And Otis Campbell, I don't know who the greatest. Those two together would have been fun trying to go somewhere. Dudley, Hogs got him a big one, as they say down south. They got him a big one Saturday. It's the 11 a.m., 12 Eastern timeout game. Wow. I blew it last week. I thought Mississippi State was going to rise up, have a good game. And I'm thinking, Arkansas is making a lot of progress, but Mississippi State is due for a big game. My calculations completely wrong. 58 points. That's as many as y'all scored in 2016 down there in Starkville. But the Hogs, 3 of the 10 most impressive offensive performances in school history have occurred this year with Bob Petrino on the staff. Take it from here, the man in the Boston Mountains.
I think that the game plan was really good. I mean, obviously, Jaquindon Jackson, who's been their best running back all year, but had health issues and hadn't been able to stay out there. They just turned the ball over to Braylon Russell this week, the young freshman, the 253-pound freshman. Used that as their major attack, some play action, and obviously Taylon Green had one of his best games. You can see him continuing to come along. And it was, big win, but tell you what, you avoided a loss. And this program around here in the past couple of years has had trouble avoiding losses in games they should have won. And this was a big one because it was a trap game. Mississippi State feeling pretty good about themselves. And they still did a lot of good things offensively, but it was a big non-loss. It's more than anything.
Yeah, but the cool thing about Arkansas is that running back room. And Vince knows what that's doing for Tennessee with Dylan Sampson, kid out of Baton Rouge. And Jarquez Hunter, they found him on the roster that he'd been on the side of a milk carton at Auburn for a while. And they realized, hey, we got a good running back here. But you got to have running backs to make it in this league. And that is a spectacular background. Now, Vince, next week, and I'll be so – can you get the Smoky Mountains on next week? Maybe come on with a little Ronnie Millsap, Smoky Mountain Rain. That is – I love the mountains. They are so beautiful wherever you go. I've never been to a place where the mountains are that I didn't like them. But, Dudley, I like that take on there. Listen, I love getting y'all two going. Vince Ferrara, catch him, the Sports Animal 99.1 up in Knoxville on the Vol Network as well. They have a 7-hour pregame show, something like that. It's big. The Vol Network is ginormous. Vince, you've been up since 4 o'clock this morning. Your brain, look at that. Wow. Somewhere in there is Vince Ferrara. But
yeah,
Vince,
he's there. I just, you wanted to see the Great Smoky Mountains. You asked
I
Vince.
love 'em.
You're always asking. Our guests are not going to keep showing up. You keep asking them to do shit, Rob.
Well,
just
the Smoky Mountains. Vince, let's talk some Big Orange football.
I've never looked better than hidden by all the smoke in the Smoky Mountains. That's for sure. But it's busy. Back to game week after the open week last week, and not only filled in, not only did our show this morning, yesterday, and this week, but filled in on the afternoon show yesterday too. So kind of on fumes. So apologize if I sound a little dragging here today, but it is. It's an interesting, game here because this is a take care of business game, and Dudley knows when you're in a position as a favorite, you better do what you're supposed to do, or else those big games that are down the road are not going to matter. And this is one of those maturity games for Tennessee. And look, they're still being criticized and asked questions about where the offense is in the first half. 3 straight games where they have not scored a point in the first half. And you're getting to the point where in less than a week after this weekend's games, guys, I'm sure we'll get into playoff talk, that first ranking comes out, and you just don't want to give the committee extra things to where they can dock you for when they're trying to separate you from a bunch of other teams. Yes, your defense is elite, but they're going to need to kind of cancel this terrible offense narrative that's out there, show that they can do some things in there and throw out an offense. And look, if they do, this team can beat anybody because of how elite the defense is playing right now. And then they do have one of the better running backs in the country in Dylan Sampson. You were talking, Rob, about you better have a running back. 17 touchdowns. I mean, going into the last game, he had as many touchdowns as Genty did, and Genty's been the leader until recently for the Heisman Trophy in those odds. So he's delivering big time. They just have to get the run game and then hit those deep shots and score in the first half. And they're going to need to do it early in this Kentucky game because it's only going to raise the anxiety inside of Neyland with just under 102,000 people in there that can't understand why this team has not been better offensively after them looking like the best offensive team in the country earlier this year.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Vince. One of the things back to the Arkansas-Mississippi State game, they kept saying Mississippi State needs to get a lead. They need to be, that's how they're going to win the ball game. And, if they get the lead and go throughout, they fumble on the first series. And Arkansas takes it, puts it in on a big-time Taylor Green read. Even from not being there every day, I can tell that Tennessee, if they got the ball in the end zone in the first quarter, they just would play more relaxed and be ready to go and play to their full potential. And it's a long time. It's still always been about takeaways and giveaways. You got to have more takeaways than you do giveaways. That was the scene of Arkansas in the 5 games they've won have had more takeaways than giveaways. In the 3 they've lost, more giveaways than takeaways.
Dudley, just my request. You got it. This background it's soothing. Enjoy the zen. I absolutely like the Boston Mountains are. It really is. It's gorgeous. Along the line of what Dudley just said, Vince, you look at Tennessee, hadn't scored a point in 3 consecutive games, first time in 61 years, 1963 that has happened. But Ellis Johnson is on the show with us Monday's coach. He's been around. He knows he's brilliant. He's really smart. He said the offense is predicated on the deep ball with Nico Iamaleava. He's a freshman, really. I know he played at the end of last year in the Iowa game, but he's really a freshman quarterback. Talk about his development, give him a grade up to this point, as only the man from Tampa can do.
I appreciate that. The deep shots are, as Coach Johnson was talking about, they're a huge part of this offense. It's running between the tackles, getting in the right numbers in terms of the box count, whether it's run or pass, and then hitting on your deep shots. It's based on the run game, but it's also taking those vertical shots and then hitting them. And they haven't done that to a good enough clip, not like they were doing earlier in the year. Granted, it was much lesser competition. Look, last year, the biggest criticism was Joe Milton would overthrow all of his receivers in deep shots. He was 30% in throws beyond 20 yards. Nico this year is 31%. It's basically the same. 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Joe Milton had 10 touchdowns, 4 interceptions for the year in those throws beyond 20 yards. They got to hit them. And I think not only would getting an early score be really helpful to kind of break the seal and relax everybody, as Dudley was talking about, but if you can hit a deep shot over the top for a touchdown from Nico, then that checks multiple boxes. You get the score, you get Nico being comfortable with the deep ball and knowing where to put that ball and put a little bit more air on it. Sometimes it is a little bit more on the line, which is something that Joe Milton did last year. The good thing is that, the numbers are similar to last year with Milton, but Nico does a number of things better, and he's younger, so they can do more with the run game and a number of other things. I'd like to see them evolve and add to this offense and not just be deep shot, run between the tackles, a couple of basic concepts. I understand wanting to make sure the receivers and Nico don't have too much on their plate, but this open week should give them a chance to evolve things, have more checkdowns, do more of those vertical wide receiver screens with blockers out in front that they used to do a ton with Milton. They don't do very much now. The quarterback run game, the rollout with Nico, they've sampled some of that in there, but not enough. So that's the big thing, is the evolution of this offense under Nico. So to answer your original question, Rob, in terms of a grade, I would give Nico probably a B- or a C+.
Okay.
And that's because we saw, and I think we know his capability. I wasn't expecting Heisman year this year, but he has been far less accurate than we thought. He's still crazy talented, and he will be fine. I haven't changed my long-term opinion on him. It's just taking a little bit longer. That's all. So nothing terrible, but they do have to get it going here soon.
All right. Dudley, got to ask you, if you had a chance to talk with Taylon Green, and if you did you ask him what it was like having Aston Genty in the backfield? And your grade on Taylon Green, because consistency is what I think he needs more of, but I've never seen a quarterback who's been in Bobby Petrino's system very long who wasn't consistent, because if he wasn't, you'd never hear of him.
Yeah, that's true. And the young man at Boise State who, I try to watch as much as I can because they have a Heisman Trophy vote, and obviously he's in the mix, way up there in the mix. But Taylon knows he was outstanding. He's gotten healthy and been better this year for Boise State. So that's he's living up to his full potential. Taylon is the happiest he's been here lately because Patrick Kudus and Keyshawn Blackstock, two offensive linemen who have been banged up. Obviously this was Patrick's debut, and Keyshawn's been kind of in and out. They finally got an offensive line healthy and in the spots that they wanted them to be at the start of the season, and it flourished on Saturday. I know that, you got to take into account Mississippi State was missing 3 of their defensive linemen. It wasn't, they weren't at full strength. But still, you get a hat on a hat. I heard somebody say helmet on helmet. You can't do helmet on helmet anymore.
Hat on a hat.
But hat on a hat. They were able to. Here's the deal. They've had a lot of explosive plays this year, but on 3rd and 1, they hadn't got it done. On 3rd and 2, they hadn't got it done. And they were 0-7 on 3rd down. But on 1st and 2nd down, they got a lot of yards. And on 4th down, they were successful. And again, I'll go back to the takeaways thing. They had what Coach Pittman said was 5 turnovers, and they stopped Mississippi State twice on 4th down.
Well, you think about, I saw a picture on X over the weekend of Taylon Green with Patrick Kudus and his offensive lineman. They gathered for a prayer on the field after the game. And just, I think everybody knows without an offensive line, you can't do anything. If you're a quarterback, you love those guys. And that's a sign, wow, you're getting healthy. Vince, let's talk about the health of Tennessee. Kentucky's got a good defensive line, but their offense is abysmal. And I agree. Ronnie Millsaps is a legend. Every song that he sings just puts me in a good mood. I love, that's what I call real country music. It's not all that manufactured stuff with AI that they call country today. A lot of it I could fart in a bucket and sound better. But anyway, Vince, let's talk about that on Tennessee.
Yeah, from a health standpoint, I think Tennessee's in better shape overall, with excluding a couple of guys that are out for the year, like Keenan Peely, who is a significant loss. And they actually handled the Alabama game without him pretty well. Communication. I thought not having Peely as a spy against Milroe would hurt them, and they handled that fine. They did an awesome job against Milroe and against Alabama, not allowing Ryan Williams the yards after catch. He only had 7 yards after catch. That guy who has just destroyed teams, including Georgia, in yards after catch, they only allowed 7 to Ryan Williams in that game. And so they did an unbelievable job overall, even without Keenan Peely. So, that, and they have Jacoby Thomas, Jordan Thomas, who was their starting star DB. He was out before the year. So those are the 2 would-be starters that are not there anymore. But overall, Squirrel White is the biggest health question mark. He's had a lingering shoulder injury. Every time he dives for a ball or goes to the ground, he seems to come out of the game and really holding that shoulder low, but he's fighting through it. And Heupel said last week that he thought he'd be good to go. You never know with what the coaches tell us. We'll find out what the availability report says tonight. But Kentucky didn't have their starting 2 running backs against Auburn, one of which they haven't had for a while.
Yeah.
They've had 3 starters on defense that have missed time. Maxwell Hairston, their boundary corner, De'Eric Jackson, their weak side linebacker, JJ Weaver, their outside backer. All of those guys are question marks and something to look at in terms of that availability report. So Kentucky, I think, is a little bit more banged up than Tennessee is. We'll see what that looks like, and not only tonight, but when we get to the game Saturday night in Knoxville.
Well, Saturday night, it'll be a beautiful sight because on the banks of the Tennessee River, the Pride of the Southland band forms that giant T. That is one of the most riveting, chilling. It'll bring tears to your eyes to see it. That's college football at its best. Dudley, can you answer this question? I know we got a great fan of the show, Blind Squirrel Sports. Here's RS Sports, but he says, Dudley, can you provide some insight on Arkansas dismissing a couple of tight ends from the team? All I heard is violation of team rules. Expand.
Yeah, I make it clear I don't traffic in rumors, but do gather information, and I do offer observations. It's kind of interesting that these 2 young men are no longer on the team. Right after Andreas Platsky catches 2 touchdown passes, Luke Haas catches 2 touchdown passes. They don't see as many snaps, so I can't give you the exact team violation.
Yeah,
you ain't gonna get it past me that those 2 guys coming out having good games and the other 2 not playing as much, doesn't have something to do with anything. I may not be the smartest man in the room, even if there's just 2 of us, but I'm not the dumbest either. And, it's easy to put things together. And here's the deal. Whatever they did, it wasn't one of these things. It wasn't on the police report. We get that police report. We check that every Monday, make sure nobody's on there. Sunday's there. There was no allegations made. So, you just start putting things together and you look at playing time and, that's what I'm going with. And until I'm told different, and I've said this already, nobody's told me different. And usually somebody does. If I'm hunting down the wrong trail, somebody will yell at me, and say, hey, here's this. And so I think what you got here is 2 kids that have been inconsistent this year, Ty Washington and Marquise Gums, the 2 young men, the tight ends. And the one thing that is very clear, they do not have an opportunity to return. So, that sounds like an internal thing to me more than doing an external, getting on Dixon Street and doing anything.
Yeah, and that always is something you got to worry about is Dixon Street.
Dixon Street is undefeated, man. Just ask Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Vince, tell people out there that are watching, and I love this guy, George. He's out in Portland, Oregon, home of our marketing department of EXO Armor, one of our sponsors. They make non-invasive pads and braces. During a game, use a 3D printer. We've got the QR code we can show you. But they're based in Auburn, and they've got colleges, pro teams all over the country using the 3D printers. If you subscribe to their service, it's amazing. Dudley sprains his wrist or an ankle in the first quarter. They dial in his coordinates to EXO Armor. They fire them back. You print off using the 3D printer. You've got a brace. Dudley's ready to go out there and get another couple of QB sacks or some QB hurries or whatever for the rest of the game. It's technology. It's like we've never seen. EXO Armor, Sarah Cooley, the marketing director. If you would like a one-on-one with them, they're great people. They work the NFL, colleges, high schools. Really ought to subscribe to their service, EXO Armor. Vince, tell the people watching, like George out in Portland, Oregon, man, he's up early, and thank you for watching. Something about Tennessee, and I get this question from fans of the show that I've never heard, that I don't know. What is it about this Tennessee football team or a player on there to keep your eye on, or a cool story?
Well, I'll give you, if it's okay, I'll give you 2 quick ones, one big picture and then a player.
Absolutely.
Big picture is something that you have brought up oftentimes, Rob, and that's the home field advantage, the Neyland effect.
God.
I
Place is amazing.
I don't think people realize just how loud it is. Now, A friend of mine, Chris Stewart, who's the voice of Alabama football now. And
he's really good, by the way.
He is. He's outstanding.
Really good.
A tremendous guy, too. I don't know if I've mentioned it on this show, but I was once Chris Stewart's boss because I was the program director of an all-sports station in Tuscaloosa, and Chris was doing mornings. So I was the PD and did afternoons for a while, and Chris did the morning show. And he was doing baseball and basketball back then, as he still does with football. And then, as it turns out, later on, I was also Kenny the Snake Stabler's boss because Chris, Mike Grace, who has an excellent show, does an SEC show in the state of Alabama, and then Chris Snake and Mike Grace did an afternoon show on our station and kind of a little network. So technically, I was the PD of that station, so I was Kenny the Snake Stabler's boss.
Wow,
so
I love
a little bit of crazy thing, little note on that. But Chris got a lot of headline. I'm sorry, Rod. Chris got a lot of headlines this week because of his comment. Sure, you guys have talked about it and heard about it, and how he said Tennessee pipes in crowd noise. He said during the broadcast, and then he tried to explain it. He meant they pipe in artificial noise, meaning the speakers and are blaring music, but they only can do that to a certain period until the center is over the ball. It is crazy loud through those speakers, but when that is off and it's just the fans, it is still amazingly loud in there. Yeah. And we've seen every QB have issues with communication and trying to hear all those kind of things. So that effect, I think people cannot replicate in practice in just how loud just under 102,000 can be. So that's from a big picture standpoint. From a player standpoint, I think one of the MVPs of this team is Jermon McCoy. And he was on the Thorpe watch list, one of 15 around the country, just named to that yesterday. Big time corner. He had an excellent freshman year at Oregon State, transferred over. And I asked him yesterday, well, what are you proud of how you've improved as a player here? And he said, I'd say, my dedication to it and the work I put in. He said, when I was at Oregon State, I really didn't, watch a bunch of tape, and I just went out there and as a former wide receiver, so he has those skills, so he could kind of get by and not having to put in a lot of work. Where he got to Tennessee, and it's a different level of demanding of what you need to do to develop and get better as a player. And he, by applying the mental and that work ethic part of it to go with his skill sets as a tall 6'1" corner with great wide receiver ball skills, we're seeing it play out. Had the great pick of Jalen Milroe in the end zone, and now you're seeing it pay off. He's their punt returner as well. Mm-hmm. He's one of the better corners in the SEC, and arguably the best of any of the transfer impact guys that they've had. So Jermon McCoy, a great story for Tennessee.
I mean, I love that. Dudley, you, again, what I respect so much about what both of y'all do, and I like the way you handle the Chris, Stewart comments. I mean, Chris, from what I know, is a good guy. And this thing now, if somebody says something, he's terrible. Man, you ought to be around me and my two older sisters. Holy cow. I mean, I love them, but, I mean, I'm the youngest. And Dudley, by God, that background, I just can think about hearing a little Bill Monroe in that haunting bluegrass voice and Hank Williams. And I could even throw in some Jimmy Driftwood, Willie Nelson. Dudley, you got to bring this background. Now, Shoney down in Valdosta texted me off air and said, when's he going to bring back the Pebble Beach golf course? And which is, but wait, let's do that in the fall. I love that. And by the way, your internet has never worked better, your Wi-Fi connection. So that background, I'm a fan of, man. But talk about something with Arkansas. I said this to Grant Morgan, who's out of Greenwood, Arkansas, great walk-on linebacker. My favorite walk-on ever is a guy out of Searcy, Arkansas, a true badass who looks a lot like Joe Rogan, Weston Dacus. I mean, that's a guy, and I brought him up to Houston Nut one time. He goes, man, I love that guy. Best days of your life. But tell us something about Arkansas we don't know, other than the fact they're the 23rd winningest program in the history of college football. And from 1959 to 1989, they were in the top 10 in the country 12 years, and they won 10 conference championships in that time period. But other than that, there's a lot of cool stuff about Fayetteville and the university.
Yeah, I mean, it's a legendary football program. A lot of its history is with Southwest Conference, obviously, and where they played second fiddle a lot to Texas. But when they did beat them, it was usually for a national
cause for celebration.
Yeah, something like that. I think that a lot of things, because a lot of SEC teams might not know that during the course of their transition from the SWC to the SEC, this stadium went from a high school one, basically, with 30,000 to one that can see, you can get 80,000 in there and out if you really, literally try. And Coach Broyles did a wonderful job of going around the state and really raising funds and accelerating, and then helped make the decision to switch to the SEC.
Yeah.
The thing I would say that a lot of people don't know about it is how hard it was to get to that point. And, there was money in Central Arkansas, money in Northwest Arkansas. There were a lot of fights during that. We're going to have another one after Arkansas State and Arkansas play in Little Rock next year, because I'm not sure there'll be any more Little Rock games after that. Ordering for that. But it's a state that has come together, and it wasn't an easy thing to do, in terms of athletics.
Yeah. I like this Buck Wade, Ralph Stanley, another great one. And I tell you what's incredible is to see Robert Plant, y'all have heard of him, and Allison Krauss together on stage, like at the Orpheum in downtown Memphis. That is incredible. Guys, the coolest thing as we wrap up here in the last few minutes about college football this year is that Friday night, there were a bunch of us together. We couldn't take our eyes off the color TV watching Boise and UNLV. That game, they had the biggest crowd, like 42,000 in memory, out there at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. I'm finding myself, you remember the movie Raising Arizona when H.I. McDonough he said, I find myself taking routes home from work that I'm not supposed to go to by old convenience stores, because he used to love to rob convenience stores. Are y'all finding yourself watching games that you normally didn't pay attention to because there's so much interest because of a 12-team playoff? Because I think that's what's happening. And I think we have created, in a roundabout way, more interest in college football. Vince Ferrara from Tampa, Florida. Go ahead, Vince.
Yeah, I don't even think, Rob, I think you're right, but I don't even think it's roundabout way. I think this is what we expected, right?
I did.
Yeah, I did too. And this is delivering maybe even more so. Absolutely, I find myself watching more games than I probably would have normally. And honestly, if we weren't Dudley's probably in the same boat with Arkansas, if you weren't locked in and had so much going on with your own team, I'd probably watch even more, and if time permitted. But this is not a surprise to me that it's played out this way. And radio criticize people. Well, no one's paying attention to this game. No one's paying attention to this game. What are you talking about? A lot more people are paying attention to it. And I find that people now are maybe trying to overcompensate those conferences that have expanded to go out of their way to talk about some of those teams because they feel like they don't get the attention. A Pitt Syracuse game a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
Pitt and SMU. Those are all things that are very intriguing, and they're standing and because of their records and being relevant in a major conference now, we are paying attention to them. But I don't think people are being slighted, even if not everybody's paying attention. Yeah. This also takes time for more people to get it like we get it. So you're not being slighted if if that game is not pulling the ratings of, Georgia, Texas or whatever.
Yeah.
It's going to take time, but a lot of us that love the sport are paying more attention.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
a
agree.
lot of this, and I don't want to sound like a jerk, although I don't care, about somebody.
Don't worry about it.
I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear your opinion if you hadn't done the research.
Yeah,
and I take great pride in watching as many games as I can, and I'll have 2 or 3 on this afternoon, just watching while I'm writing, just because I want my opinion to be informed. And I don't want to toss out something there and somebody say, well, you didn't know about this. Well, I've tried, and especially in this day and age in college athletics, when the transfer portal is so prominent, I want to know about every football player I can. I want to know about every situation I can. And that's why the wife, after a lot of negotiation, has allowed 3 TVs in here. It looks like Buffalo Wild Wings or whatever, on the wall.
Love it.
And she figured out that was the thing that we were going to have to do. If we were going to watch, Law and Order, there had to be another couple of TVs down there so I could keep an eye on the Boise State UNLV game or Syracuse or whoever, Kennesaw State beating Liberty and all that. Yep. I mean, I watch those games. I have those on because I feel like it's important. If this is my job, then I should be as informed as I should be.
And also, by watching all those games, you know who these players are because you never know with the portal. And when I said a roundabout way, what I was referencing to was the fact a lot of people have said NIL and the portal are killing football. No, they're not. They're creating more interest. It's like, that old joke about people in Alabama. There are 2 kinds of people. There's the liars that say they don't watch Paul Feinbaum, and then there's the ones that do. What he's done is he's made a fortune rattling up those fan bases of Auburn and Alabama, and now it's just become nationwide, and you've created hey, you're more aware about your rivalries. But what I think is happening, I'm watching Aston Genty did not leave Boise. He stayed. So that's a cool story, and I think that you'll start seeing regional pride when guys will say, you know what, I'm staying behind. Now, I don't know if the Pac-12 schools that joined the Big Ten, if long-term that's sustainable, the travel cost. When they do the audits, but then again, when you look at the TV money going forward, we're talking schools getting $150 million a year from TV money. By making the more people that you get nationwide locked in, watching TV, it's just, I think financially it's great.
To your point, to your point about that with Patrick Kudus, finally gets healthy enough to play. Him and Coach Pittman have a conversation. He says, Coach, I really want a red shirt. Can I only play the 4 games in the bowl? Because the bowl is free now. It doesn't count into your 4.
Okay.
And Coach Pittman said, yes, I would love to get you ready to play, but don't tell me I'm going to redshirt you. You're going to go somewhere else. And he said, no, I'm going to be here. You don't got to worry about me. I just want to play, but I want to have an extra year to come back and play for Arkansas. That is a refreshing attitude that, you would think of because, Patrick and his family.
Yeah,
that's not the norm here these days.
Yeah.
And that's why he'll play in all but one of these last games. I would imagine it would be Louisiana Tech. But that was refreshing to hear, because everybody's looking for a door out instead of a door in.
Yeah. Well, you think I'm from Memphis, and I'll admit I'm biased, but the Saxons and the Kuduses those are 2 of the greatest Catholic families ever in Memphis, and just great people. And Patrick's entire family is a Christian Brothers High School graduate. There's so many people pulling for that kid, and they're not Arkansas fans, all of them. A lot of them are. But then you see the picture with him and Taylor Green. See, y'all are so blessed, and I am too. We get to cover these stories about these people, and man, there's so many great ones. But let me say, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Simple explanation is go out and help people. Find excuses to win and make the world a better place. Everybody watching this show, can't thank you enough. Vince, they follow you every day. Tell them how, Dudley, and we'll tag out, and we'll see you in the morning.
Yeah, at Vince Sports on all the socials, 99to1thesportsanimal.com to get podcasts of our daily show, Sports Talk, and then also high school football on Friday nights. We're getting to the playoffs here soon.
All right, the man of the Boston Mountains.
Yeah, hogbill.net, where we cover all 19 Razorback sports. Got some basketballs firing up. Obviously, they had a big win in the scrimmage game here the other day. But fearlessfriday.com, and I've got a story going up today about a coach who has coached 479 games, Tommy Tice, who's now at Farmington, came out of retirement. He was involved in a game the other night, 78-75, and he said his defense won it at the end.
We live in the greatest country in the history of the world, folks. See you tomorrow, man. Thanks, guys.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shoppe health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.